Hi folks, TheFilipinaPea here. And it might just be that in the near future, neither men nor women will have any use for each other. Until now, we've always had a purpose for one another. Men provided support and protection, and women provided female companionship and kept the home base in order. But the equation is changing right before our very eyes, and there's a serious imbalance in the force. A growing number of people, both male and female, are coming to the conclusion that the cons outweigh the pros when it comes to the opposite sex. There's obviously still plenty of happy relationships being formed every day. But what about tomorrow? Are we headed for a world where there's no benefit to romantic interactions at all? Well, before you scoff at the idea, just hear me out. So let's just admit it. Relationships between men and women are changing, and the old rules are being thrown out the window. Maybe it'll turn out to be a good thing, but I don't see how. Now, I don't want to sound like George Orwell, but I can envision a future that makes 1984 sound mild in comparison. So maybe it's time to face facts and look at where we seem to be headed before it's too late to avoid a truly dystopian future. A future where men and women barely do more than nod at each other at work. Now, even though we don't like to think of it this way, relationships have always been a transaction where each party gets something they really want or need. And for millennia, we've been making things work. But what happens when the marketplace fundamentally changes in a way that totally disrupts the supply and demand, and suddenly no one wants to buy what the other party is selling? Judging from the latest trends, it looks like that's exactly what's happening, as both men and women in the modern world are fleeing from traditional partnerships. But why? How in the world did it come to this? And where does it lead? Well, the primary thing a woman always needed from a man was his resources and protection. In return, a man wanted physical intimacy and someone to handle the domestic side of things, which included caring for the children and making sure everyone was fed. Now, the system has worked since the beginning of recorded history, and it made perfect sense. Men were bigger and stronger, so they could protect their women. They were the best hunters, who could track and kill prey much more efficiently. In almost every department, women needed men for their very survival. Fast forward a few thousand years, and men were doing their hunting in the form of employment. Women still needed a man's paycheck, but in today's more stable societies, they didn't really need a man's physical protection as much. They had the government for that. But in the last few decades, we've seen a whole new paradigm in the roles of the sexes. Not only did women enter the workforce in huge numbers, but the process was pushed along by a gender-based form of affirmative action, which is forcing a dramatic change in the composition of the workforce, as companies often give preferential treatment to the hiring of persons with a uterus. A lot of women have been sold on this idea that being a housewife isn't enough, that they should be the masters of their own destinies by pulling down big salaries and fending for themselves. In some cases, this is just the economic reality of needing more than one income, but in other cases, it's just pure greed. Now, I'm not saying that women making their own money is a bad thing, but at what cost? When the boss babe mentality causes a woman to work 80 hours a week to prove she can do whatever a man can, the price is often the family unit and the opportunity to be a real mother to her children. So now, a woman no longer needs a man's money any more than she needs his protection. And the situation is made even worse by one simple little word: hypergamy. The problem is, women are biologically programmed to marry up, to find a mate that provides more than she does. So what happens when at least half the top wage earners are women? Who are they going to be attracted to? Oh, they'll still be attracted to the pump and dump chads, the top 10% of men on the totem pole. But what about for serious relationships? Well, as a perfect example of a train wreck in progress, and maybe a look into our own futures, take a look at the Chinese women that have become wealthy along with the rise of their economy. No matter how rich they get, they still demand to marry up, leaving them with very few options. So how do they handle the problem? By saying, it's not a problem, and going on social media to show off their wealth, while claiming they're perfectly happy to live alone and childless. Sound familiar? It's not just a problem in the West. So now we've covered the more obvious facts about how we got to this point, but what I really want to talk about is where we go from here and speculate about what might happen if we don't reverse things. If men can no longer offer what women want, and women are no longer offering what men want, what happens next? Will all interactions become simple financial arrangements? Will both parties bring their lawyers to negotiate the rules of a date?
Right, so we'll say a dinner, complete sexual encounter, optional episode in the morning, right?
I gotta run this past my own lawyer.
Pleasure is strictly business.
Or what about a renewable marriage contract with a 1-year duration? If either one of the parties want to discontinue the relationship, it's null and void, and each person leaves the marriage with the same assets they brought into it. How romantic! And if the laws are ever applied evenly to both sexes, there'll be more cases of husbands getting alimony from their boss babe wives, and women will want to protect their nest eggs from future partners. So I'm sure that prenups will become standard procedure. Or maybe we just won't get married at all, and the institution will die a slow, cruel death. And what about kids? If people aren't having long-term relationships, how will we have children? One-night stands for the purpose of procreation? Paying a fee for the man's stud service in exchange for waiving any rights to child support? Maybe surrogate motherhood or IVF with no partner at all, and women just getting baby batter from clinics. Unless men across the planet stop donating and refuse to sell their secret ingredient. But then the price would rise and some guys would start selling their juice on the black market. But even that would only affect the top 10% of guys anyway, because women have gotten really picky about a man's juice too. They want height, they want looks, and advancements in genetic research now make it possible to choose your child's eye color. So it won't be long before we're seeing full-blown designer babies. Women will take all that energy they used to have for planning weddings and put it into obsessing about the proper length of little Johnny's nose. And what about the problem of not having a two-parent household and not even having any parent at home, as mom chases her corporate dreams? Who's gonna take care of all these kids? Giant government-run centers where children are raised by the system and taught who knows what by the state? And what about the men? Where do you guys fit into all this? Well, if you're not a top earner, or at least at the top of the gene pool when it comes to things like height or looks, you won't even be a part of the conversation. Because when today's women say they don't need a man, they're not just talking about income. A lot of women say they don't need a man in their sex lives either. I don't think I need to tell you about all the devices on the market to keep women buzzing with excitement, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you'd like a product review, but that'll have to wait for a different video, on a different channel, by a different YouTuber. But are all these different forces combining to make relationships less important to the average woman, where does that leave the guys? If women have become bitter and entitled, what will happen to the men that don't find a mate? Well, technology works both ways, and while women are knocking each other down to buy the latest trendy fashions with their newfound wealth, men might be flocking to the world of AI companionship. Right now, this very minute, a guy can create his own perfect online girlfriend. She never asks you for money, she never ghosts you, and she's happy to do all the spicy video chats you desire. The new apps are getting pretty advanced, and the female avatar you create actually listens to what you have to say, remembers your likes and dislikes, and tries to become the source of companionship that so many guys are craving, even if she only lives in your electronic devices. If that sounds a little too far-fetched, think again, because major media outlets are already sounding the alarm.
That sci-fi concept fast becoming a troubling reality. AI girlfriends are ruining an entire generation of men. Apps have created virtual girlfriends that talk to you, love you, allow you to live out your erotic fantasies, and learn through data exactly what you like and what you don't like, creating the perfect relationship.
As strange as all that might seem to you, it's just a natural reaction to a demand in the marketplace. As long as people are looking for alternatives to human relationships, the amount of new technology will only grow. The one thing that's missing from the online AI, of course, is the physical component. But what happens when they develop advanced sensory gear that connects to your whole body, so you feel like you're experiencing things in reality? Welcome to the brave new world of enhanced VR. Put on your nerve gear and dive into a world where things are exactly the way you want them to be. And you can not only talk to the woman of your dreams, but you can feel her too. But will that be enough?
I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. Ignorance is bliss.
Once the technology exists to make a virtual experience as pleasurable as the real thing, what's the point of pursuing those complicated human-to-human interactions that can leave you broke or with some life-threatening disease while paying child support for the rest of your life? But that pales in comparison to what's on the horizon. In just a few years, the AI of today will look silly in comparison to what's on offer tomorrow, as companies across the globe are perfecting android bodies to go with improved AI software. Your perfect partner will like the same things you like, both in and out of the bedroom, with no compromising at all. Of course, if they're smart, they'll throw in some random unexpected behavior to keep things from getting stale. Maybe some Android PMS every once in a while, so you don't completely forget human women. And there'd be no end to the variety. Why not have 2 perfect mates, or 5? An available partner for whatever mood you're in. And no more legal complications, no alimony, palimony, or assets at risk. Your companion can mind your finances, keep the kitchen stocked, do pretty much anything you want her to. That is until the androids are granted rights, which starts the whole thing all over again. As much as this sounds like science fiction, I assure you, it's not that far away. The ultimate question is whether this will ever be an acceptable option to flesh and blood and provide an alternative to a lack of suitable partners. But no matter what the future holds, it's obvious that things between men and women will be different, maybe very different. We may breathe the same air, but decide not to share the same bed. It might take quite a while for a drastic cultural transformation to reach faraway places like my country. But when you look at how fast the internet spread across the planet and its dramatic effect on cultures everywhere, you can't be too sure. Just look at how fast cell phones appeared in everyone's hands, changing the world forever. In the meantime, I bet Southeast Asia and other areas will become an even bigger refuge for shell-shocked victims of the culture wars. But who knows? Maybe things will stabilize before it gets much worse. Maybe it's like a pendulum and we're just way off center. Where many of you live, the 60s were supposed to be the start of a new world of free love and a rejection of material wealth. But then that generation grew up and the movement kind of fizzled out. Will this trend fizzle out? Will people finally realize that they not only want, but need each other? Maybe I'm just a dreamer. But what could possibly replace a warm couch and a hot cup of coffee while your partner rubs your shoulders? I sure don't want to find out. In a few years, people just entering the dating game might come to a different conclusion.
The only winning move is not to play.
Well, that's it for today's episode. But I want to hear your predictions for the future. What do you think the dating and marriage scene looks like 20 years from now? Have things permanently gone too far? Funny comments are always welcome, but I also want to hear your predictions. As for Tuesday, I'll be back with a burning new topic about another strange Filipino mating habit. So get ready for some fun. Till next time, folks. Service Center, IT Department. Did you try turning her off and on again? Okay, what model is she? A Tampo 2000? Yeah, the Filipina series is kind of twitchy. What seems to be the problem? Oh no, sir, that's not an error. That's actually how they're programmed. When you even just look at another female bot, it activates their temper routine. Did it just totally shut down for a few hours? Not a sound. Yep, that's what they're supposed to do. Just give it a while and she'll power up again. Anything else I can help you with? Staking cash out of your wallet when you're not looking? Well, we can try disabling the scamming subroutine, but that's usually hardwired into the newer models. Okay, it's obvious you're having a lot of trouble with your Filipina bot. Well, maybe you just want to trade her in for a Western model. We're running a special right now on the blue-haired fembot, and one model in particular, the Karen 2023, is so cheap they're practically giving it away. Sir? Hello? Hello? Give me a P. Give me an E. Give me an A. What do you got? What you got is the best source of information about life in the Philippines. I can give you the inside scoop about everything you need to know, then cheer you on as you start your overseas adventure. All I ask in return is that you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and consider becoming a patron to receive extra content and exclusive videos. And while you're waiting for the game to resume, why not check out the halftime show? I wish I had bigger pom-poms.